All right, welcome everyone to this webinar series. We will wait another 30 seconds just to let people trickle in. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar series. My name is Sophie. I'm the Event Strategy Manager here at Vention, and happy to have you today. So this is our first ever webinar series, Scaling Up with Automation, a guide for small to medium manufacturers. It consists of 3 insightful episodes where we'll explore the compelling need for automation in today's manufacturing landscape. We will guide you through identifying your first automation project and help you build your advanced manufacturing team necessary for success. So whether you're a small business just starting out or you're looking to enhance your current automation endeavors, this series is key to thriving in a dynamic world of modern manufacturing. If you registered for the first episode, you will automatically be invited to the next 2 episodes on February 1st and February 8th. So just a few housekeeping rules before we start. You may submit your questions during the period of the webinar to Juan or to Joe in the Q&A section. We will have dedicated time at the end of the webinar to answer your live questions. And if we don't have time to answer all of the questions, you will surely be contacted via email by a Vention representative. So let's jump into a quick agenda/introduction. So first of all, I will introduce to you your speakers, and then Joe will cover the market pressures and need for automation. And then we will move on to an insightful conversation with Joe and Juan, and then we will jump into the Q&A session afterwards. So welcome to the 2 speakers of today. Joe Wykes, a dynamic leader and chief revenue officer at Vention, spearheading the company's success in manufacturing automation for the last 2 years. As a core member at _VC, he actively contributes to the greater Boston startup ecosystem, emphasizing innovation in manufacturing technology, with prior leadership roles at Stormforge and advisory position at Boston Digital and Visagi. Joe brings a unique blend of business and technical expertise. His 8-year tenure at Acquia and presidency at Percussion Software showcases his strategic impact in the technology and manufacturing sectors. Combining legal acumen as a former barrister at law, Joe's a versatile professional passionate about driving growth and innovation for small to medium manufacturers. And welcome as well to Juan Martinez, the VP of Branding and Manufacturing Growth at Spector Co. Juan has a remarkable 28 years career in the promotional product industry, dedicating 24 years to Spector Co. His expertise spans branding method, technology research, and effective staff management. Originating as an industrial design graduate in Mexico, he transitioned to the Canadian promotional product sector, managing a 200 plus people team and contributing to 2 major building layouts reconfigurations. Leading the research and development department for over 4 years, Juan implemented substantial improvements for the last 4 years as a director of innovation and branding strategy, and he drove technology development at Spector Co. In 2022, he attained the role of Vice President of Branding and Manufacturing Growth for North America, overseeing the establishment of a 93,000 square feet facility in Las Vegas, which he is joining us from. Operational since March 2023, symbolizing Spector Co.'s enduring growth. Juan's career reflects a profound passion for technology and staff development, pivotal in Spector Co.'s success. So welcome to both of you. Super happy to have you here today. And Joe, I will hand it off to you to kick us off with the content.
Sophie, thank you very much, and those great introductions. It's impressive. I really appreciate it. And hello, everybody. I'm really pleased that we have Juan with us today. I think it's going to be very valuable for all of you. And Juan, I know we'll come to that in a moment, but thanks very much for joining us in advance. So generally, the backdrop for the environment in which we're operating, I think all of us, what we see so much of at Vention, is there really seems to be 2 quite distinct worlds in terms of manufacturing. There are, and you can perhaps get a sense of this from some of the imagery on this slide. But you see, there's one world which has been embracing automation solutions for decades now. And those are typically in places like automotive, as an example, where very, very high throughput solutions. And these are organizations who historically have had the ability to spend many years designing, implementing, and running lines where they have, in some cases, 10 or 20 years to get a return on investment. The products don't change very much, but there is significant throughput. But for the majority of organizations, that's not their world. In fact, for most manufacturing, it's a very different scenario. It's the scenario that you see on the right as you look at this image, which is that there's significant mix in the types of products that organizations are required to manufacture based on the nimbleness and the agility and the dynamics of their business in which they operate. And for those organizations, historically, there has not been a viable solution for automation. That's largely because it's either too expensive or it's too time consuming, or it's simply too complicated for those organizations to get value based on their business models. And that problem is something that we are here to talk about today, and that we are looking to showcase how companies that hopefully you can all recognize and sort of atone with have solved those problems or are solving those problems. So with that, Sophie, I'd like to go to the next slide, please, and just put this into some context for everybody, just in terms of the scale of the situation. So this is pretty interesting data, which just showcases the concentration of manufacturing facilities across North America and gives you a feel for what's happening here. Not surprisingly, or perhaps surprisingly, depending on your experience, is just the numbers of companies that are relatively small. You can see here that over 90% of these organizations have less than 100 full-time employees there. And it's actually these organizations where perhaps they have 100 or 300 or 500 employees, where that limitation exists that we spoke about in the prior slide. And it's the large automotive companies with thousands or tens of thousands of employees that historically have been served by the solutions that were available. So it's a really, really big problem. And I think that what we'll talk about a little bit today is some of the challenges that these manufacturers, the vast majority of manufacturers, face in embracing their business moving forward, those big themes of change that are putting pressure on businesses, and how we can solve those. So I think we'll go to the next slide, please, Sophie. Well, let's get to the good stuff. Juan, that's you. It's great to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us from hopefully warm, sunny Las Vegas and the expansion.
Thank you for inviting.
I think what would be great, although Sophie did a remarkable job of introducing you, I'd love, I think for everybody, it would be great if you could give us a moment to maybe tell us a little bit more about Spector Company. We'd love to learn more about that business, its shape and size and what it does. I know we have an image of your plant there in the background here. And perhaps also then you could tell us a little bit about your mandate in the organization.
Sure. Well, thank you for the invite again. I can tell you a little bit about our company. We actually have been very active part of the growth of the promotional industry in Canada. The core of our technology applications are what you can consider traditional, such as screen printing, engraving, stamping. That said, we have always been a company that looks at the intersection of technology application from different industries, just to assimilate them, maybe reimagine them, and use them to create added value for what we do, which is basically my mandate. During 2023, coming out of the market uncertainty created by the pandemic, like many of us here did, I'm sure, we noted a general reduction of order volume that needed some attention. We realigned some of our processes to remain competitive, did a few structure changes on some of our staff activities. This introspective mindset opened the door to explore new ideas, including automation opportunities.
Got it. And tell us a little bit, Juan, about you're in this role of Vice President of Brand and Manufacturing Growth. What's your charter there? What how are you thinking about that in terms of overall in the business, but also automation?
Um, well, as I mentioned, the core technology we use is traditional for the most part, and I wouldn't. We were talking a little bit about before about the challenges for that, and I would not necessarily consider this a gradual approach to be a risk integrating automation specifically. The detailed knowledge that we require to adopt this technology is really not that different to any other technologies we have implemented.
Okay.
Those risks and the research methodology we regularly use are similar. Uh, Leaning on highly adaptable staff is a key factor for any industry. You
Yeah.
know, you and me were talking earlier in the week that long are the days that a person in a factory learn a complex technology and could actually retire operating a few variations on a particular machine type. Our team at Spector is retrained 2 to 3 times a year, sometimes with completely different technical approach, which requires for them to forget or rewire their knowledge from their last assigned equipment. To mitigate that, we focus on our staff selection, their learning ability, their commitment and passion. We have not considered ever automation as a replacement of the human factor. It
Hmm.
has been more similar to a new tool, if you may, like making the positions and activities we are focusing on more rewarding and interesting to our team.
Yeah.
The human factor is very important to us, and in addition, from a financial perspective, you talked about it earlier. Investments of this type are typically associated to an output increase or
Hmm.
driven by a precise quality consistency need. And I believe that is the reason why we see these solutions associated more often with automotive-like industries, as you mentioned before.
Yeah.
We are a relatively small company, a small operation as a comparison, and we have multiple permutations of processes and products dealing with much smaller MOQs. As a result of that, integrating a solution that includes hardware, software, and great support, that is what Vention has provided for us and help us mitigate the risk of error during the deployment process.
Got it. Um, I think for many people who are listening here today, they're looking at 2024 and the next few years, and there are many challenges that manufacturers face. Some of them are very obvious, like issues with labor. But could you maybe share with us that for your own perspective and as you talk to people in your community, what are some of the big challenges that are out there that are the manufacturers face, different pressures that are being put on them in the context of manufacturing and improving their efficiencies and effectiveness?
Well, if I can talk about our our personal experience with this, um, I mentioned the pandemic before. The pandemic was a really a wake up call on the fragility of our industries when we depend on the staff performing operations that can easily be automated. Um, so the cultural part of this is that we all um, have a rhythm of work, and sometimes that rhythm is diminished, and you cannot continue doing certain outputs. So the outputs are inconsistent. The quality is inconsistent. So identifying where you can actually add value, not to what you do, but to the team to facilitate what they do, and at the same time improve the results that you are giving to your clients. I think that is the approach that we are following, and what I think is the most delicate one, the technology aspect of it. Partnering with somebody like you and your team, that's very comfortable because you are an expert on what you're doing. We know what we do, and we partner with you to identify where we can actually implement and deploy this technology.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You mentioned that you're thinking about the employee experience. There's pressures that we know about the workforce, whether it's the aging out workforce, or attracting people, or leveling up skills. How is that sort of factored into your thoughts? There's a suggestion for some people that by bringing in automation and robotics, it's going to take jobs away.
Mm,
Tell me how you think about that, and how you've navigated that inside of your organization as you've driven this innovation and change.
sure. We have a great R&D team to keep a Spector on top of technical innovations pertaining to what we do. But as I mentioned before, it's not exclusively that. As I like to attend other industry shows to look for crossover materials and equipment that, when possible, we can incorporate. That is why developing a close relationship with equipment vendors like you is so important. If we think about the development speed of new solutions and technology, especially now that AI continues to be used extensively on all industry sectors, we need to develop stronger strategic relationships with engineering companies that will keep us on speed dial, sending us not only general notifications, but personal alerts of any innovations that can potentially be adopted by us before waiting a yearly trade show to bring them up as we did traditionally. In addition to that, automation will be important to ensure staff talent can be used to actively participate on product launches with quicker technology deployments, learning new technical processes that will add value to our offerings while allowing them to engage emotionally into what we do day in and day out, using diverse machine tending solutions.
Mhm. Got it. You had there's a really excellent short video. It's about a 4-minute video of you and your colleagues. It's on the Vention.com website, and you mentioned something in that video, even about how automation in your plant now is attractive to your customers who are coming in, and they're walking the plant, they're seeing your operations. Maybe share a little bit more about how you thought about that and some of the effects of that.
Sure. In our industry, and we have done this several times, we are open to our clients to come and visit the factory. We do it regularly. How do we process our product to meet our team, to be in our facility and really see what we do? Um, Having a robotic unit in the floor creates a little bit of a wow factor. Say, wow. And even we don't necessarily go into in depth on how this came to be with them, just by seeing that they have a perception of what we do, that we is always looking for all these great solutions that we continue to incorporate into what we do to keep us at the forefront of innovation, vanguard technology, and that we, even though I mentioned before, our technology at the core is really traditional, is screens, is stamping, laser engraving that everybody does. All the innovation that happen around that is very visual in our case, and is yet another tool to convey who we are to our clients when they visit.
Very good. No, I can imagine. I can imagine. So you mentioned that you talked about measurement and different ways of measuring the impact. There's always a question of how much things cost and how return on investment is measured. And associated with that, there are risks. There are risks that naturally come up. There are factors about adoption. There's factors about where to begin. There are how people in the organization will react. They worry about, is this going to take away my job? And so many issues, from the operator on the plant floor through all the way to the senior management offices who are thinking about why we should spend the money and why now and why on this. Maybe you could start by telling us some of the risks that are going to come up as people go down this path. And then perhaps we could explore into ways you've navigated those risks and mitigated those risks successfully, as you've done in these last few years, and as you continue to do in your role. So I'd love to hear from you about that.
Yeah. Where do we start? So we basically look into this technology as any other technology, like I said before. So the automation approach that we were after was initially considered on the satellite operations of our new technology, such as product preparation, packaging. During early conversations with Vention, and even before we cut you the first check, the initial adoption was identified as a reinforcement and consistency or repeatable actions we encounter within our process. So your team was at our factory, we were looking at some solutions. Being a promo company, opening and packaging can be intensive and considered at first sight as an opportunity for that automation. However, at the same time, in our industry, personalized solutions are typically used on the packing area, for example, considering our wide variety of product choices and permutations on their final presentations, the challenges were not ideal for a first deployment on that area. And that is the reason why we decided that tending a machine was selected as the best entry point
Right.
for this project in our case. And we look at the technology as an opportunity to continue moving forward and looking for more spaces within our operation that we can benefit from. The financial aspect of this obviously is very important, and typically we look at ROIs on equipment that is directly modifying our product, printing, branding, engraving.
Hmm.
So anything out of that is typically a little bit harder to understand and to validate unless we cut labor. So it is a conversation that we're open with internally, and this unit that we installed allows that operator to do more consistent work, and in a more consistent, more the quality of the work is a lot more repeatable. And again, the human factor, he is the person that is operating is fantastically happy
Yeah.
because all of a sudden he's, I think they even put a name on your arm, the arm that is in the picture. I don't remember, but they name it, and so it's really exciting. And I think that is something that we are very happy to have and to partner with you on this.
Yeah, super. You'd mentioned a little bit about hardware and software, and you're in Las Vegas, and our platform's an online platform. And we're headquartered in Montreal, although there are offices in Europe and Germany. We're in Montreal. I think for many companies, trying to find the right partner is hard. There's many factors, and typically, historically, the solution was going to multiple vendors and different ways of approaching this. Could you maybe share? I think it's a risk, right? You embrace technology, you choose a partner. There's risk there. You have to be you have to do your diligence to hopefully determine, is this the right technology? Is the hardware right? Is the software right? Will it all work together? It's one thing to select something, but deploying it successfully on time, in budget. Now I'm operating it. Is there something that comes up? What do I do if I need support? Are they down the road, or do I have to fly to Canada? I mean, all these sorts of questions. We know that's not the case. You don't have to fly to Canada. Of course, there's technology to do that. But how did you think about those challenges, and what were the sorts of considerations you took into account trying to find the right partner for you on this journey? Because it's your credibility here as the leader making these decisions in front of the company. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's a great question because obviously you were not the first company that we're talking with, right? And so technical is a new technology. We needed to have some sort of knowledge to do it. We have an engineering team that is very capable in Montreal and had a little bit of experience with robotics. You know that this technology has been coming down in price significantly over the past years.
Yeah.
So being completely open with you, and I already told you this, we got one of these Chinese arms at a incredibly cheap price. That seemed to do the work, right? And we set it up. It was working a little bit, stop, troubleshoot, work a little bit more, stop, trying to figure out online, doing YouTube um, analysis and research,
Mhm.
trying to call China, and obviously it was a challenge. Eventually, we had that operating in a separate area, nothing to do with what we originally intended to do. Um, and then that was a first good experience. Okay, we can do this, but we need the expertise that comes with just that as a purchase. So it's not only a purchase. We need to make sure that we are that is scalable and that we have the proper support. So we came about that your offices in Montreal are really, I think, like about 20 minutes drive from our factory.
Mm.
So I called your team and they said, yeah, we can be there next week. Take a look. They took a walk. We had great conversation, had a great meeting. And I think I told you before, I all this technology, I see it not as a purchase, but as a relationship building. So you are the experts on automation, and we want to make sure that we understand each other, that you know what we do and what we require to get this done. And your team was amazing for that. So I feel that the most important thing is to find that partnership that you were talking about before, and make sure that we are transparent as a company, letting you know, okay, what are our expectations, what is our budget, what is the ROI that we are looking at. We run some numbers and everything makes sense. And it went pretty much very smooth. The deployment happened on time. And I think that is the difference between trying to tackle it on your own and trying to and getting somebody like you supporting the process.
Yeah, good. Well, good to hear. We've worked really hard on ensuring that the software and the hardware is integrated. I know that support is really top of mind. We've spent time developing remote support, which is for our customers around the world who can have within 10 minutes have access to a live engineer on video, on the pendant, on the HMI right there, making sure we can solve those issues. So whether you can come to Montreal or whether you're far away in Las Vegas, we can still solve problems there, which is good. Excellent. So if we were to look into the future, I know this is always hard to do, but if we were to look into a crystal ball and ask ourselves, in the next few years, what do we think is on the horizon? This is both in terms of for Spector, but also in terms of automation. You mentioned prices are coming down. That's good. Solutions are becoming easier to use. We're focused on integrating software and hardware into a complete vertical stack so that it simply works in a matter of hours and days. But what do you see as some of the future holding for the industry, and both in terms of what you believe is coming and perhaps what you would like to see coming?
Well, I can speak to our industry and our goals in here would be to start also incorporating automation into uh, product handling, packaging, maybe integrating some of the traditional case sealers, case erectors
Mm.
into palletizing boxes, transportation. So I don't have the numbers with me, but we need to transport boxes and pallets from the warehouse all the way to the departments. And that's happening with the traditional jigger and somebody walking around and depositing a pallet and going back several times a day, several times a week, month, year. So there's a lot of transit happening. So that transport is one thing that we would like to address. And also, once the product is packed, as I mentioned before, the packaging in our industry is actually adding value to the product. You are giving a gift. You're creating this experience of giving product to somebody, and the packaging is the permutations of the packaging are diverse. Once that packaging is in the master in the cardboard boxes, the master package, we will take those and palletize them. So a robot like the one that you have easily can take that and organize the pallets, and then using that same transportability to go bring the finished product to the shipping area is something that I would like to see in the coming years. So I think that this first deployment in our case took the mystery out of automation, and make everybody realize that is something that is tangible even for a company our size, and is not exclusively available for big automotive companies with
Right.
millions and millions of dollars of budget to do this. So the way you scale your solutions at Vention is very, very reasonable, and the quality of the service that you have has been fundamental for what we have been doing. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Um, I got one more question from me, and then we'll see if there are some questions that Sophie has from the audience. So, when we have people with us here listening today, there's a lot of good advice and lots of things they can think about. But if you were to try and distill it down into one thing, if there was one piece of advice you had for everybody who was perhaps just starting on their journey with automation, they're in a company, maybe they're a few hundred people, maybe more, maybe less. They've got all sorts of the challenges that you've described, and they know that this is somewhere they need to bring innovation in, as you have at Spector. What would you advise all those people listening if there's one thing to start with, one thing to do that they can sort of action this week, next week, in the next couple of weeks at their business? What might that be?
Well, in addition to the evident research of the technology and looking around for the best solution, the best partnership that they can possibly have, I think, and if I refer to all the other technology that we have implemented in our case, uh, don't forget that staff doesn't have, uh, they don't need to accept a technology implementation. So our job is to sell that technology to them, to make them understand how are they going to benefit from it. And I'm not talking only about client for sure is going to benefit from it, but you have somebody in the factory floor that is working 40 hours a week doing the same thing day in and day out. You need to know your team, and you need to explain what is it that is the intention of this automation implementation and deployment. His staff sees a robot, and the very first thing that comes to their mind is, "Oh my God, we are getting replaced by the Terminator." So it is just a natural reaction. So we cannot forget that when we bring any technology that is new, our staff need to know, and they need to be happy integrating their emotional self, because they are who they are very important for the operation, to receive that technology in a way that can be sustainable,
Mhm.
and you get them to participate on it. Everything else is just piece of cake.
Got it. Okay, that's good advice. Then people may come and ask you for more tactics on how to do that, but I think it's good advice, and it's sometimes you have to push through, and people will get there in time. Okay, Sophie, do we? I don't know if we have any questions, perhaps that you've been able to share with us, or anything coming from the audience.
Yes, so I will open up and remind people that it is time for questions, and we actually perfect. We actually got one question during the chat. So I think this is in relation to the fact that you mentioned, Juan, about the fact that you have traditional equipment such as stamping, laser engraving, pressing, etc. So the question is, how does Spectre integrate their traditional equipment slash machinery to the newer technology?
Um, okay, the core technology is traditional, but over the years, one of my positions at Spectre was director of innovation. So innovation is something that requires for you to marry new technology, and not necessarily promotional available technology, but other kind of solutions into what we do, to those traditional technologies that we already have as a core. How can we improve them, and how can we add value that reflects on our clients and benefits our clients? So that's an ongoing thing, and it happens organically in our company. we continue looking for alternatives that add value to the traditional methods, uh, but making sure that those traditional methods that we have are the most effective. We have the best machinery available, and that our results are always consistent. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And we also had a conversation offline where you mentioned reaching out to the vendors of that equipment from Italy, if that's correct.
Yeah, so our equipment as research is not geographical, that's for sure. So we have vendors all over the world. One of them in Italy. We have bought equipment in China that, contrary to what most people believe, China has some companies that are really engaged in their technology, and they produce really high quality equipment. Although maybe you need to go there and find them. The ones that we found, I was on a trip in Shanghai, and I just happened to walk into a factory, and it looked like it was a German company. It was fantastic, very organized. The engineering was fantastic. We ordered several pieces of equipment from them, and they are top of the line. So yeah, research is not geographical. It's basically finding partners that take passion and pride on what they do.
Makes sense. Thank you for the
Mhm.
insights. So for everybody who didn't have time yet to ask their question, please do so in the question and answer section right now. And if we don't have time to answer your question today, we will be reaching out to you via email. So there's one more question that came in the chat, Juan, and this might be our last one. We'll see if we're going to close this off after. So Juan, what is one mistake you made integrating automated or new technology, automation, sorry, or new technology, and how did you learn from it and do it better next time?
Wow. Now this is really putting me on the spot. Um, so I would not say that is a mistake per se, but there's the margin of error that we always have. It's like when you buy a car, you buy a brand new car, and it breaks down after a week. It can be a great reputation brand, and you just get that car that breaks down, right? So we have 110 pieces of equipment all across the company, and we take pride on selecting the technology every single time. But there has been situations that the equipment just doesn't perform the way we thought about. And so it's not only developing and finding the relationship with the vendors. We talk to people that are in the industry that perhaps are using a similar kind of equipment or have a relationship with that particular vendor. I try to stay away after a couple of times. I try to stay away from vendors that I don't have a second or third reference from peers of our industry that they are already doing business with them. And that's, I'm sure that is very hard for a new company to come out and start selling you stuff when they don't have nothing out there. But I think that it's important that you have a track record of reliability and service. And that's probably one thing that we continue to implement. And even with that, we will have equipment that fail 1 week after the warranty is done, and it is just part of what we do. We are fortunate that we have the support of the company to understand these situations and backed up the solutions.
That makes sense. Amazing. Well, thank you for that answer. And I think this is how we will finish off the question period. We have 1 minute left, so we're going to close it off with that. Thank you so much, Juan, for joining and taking the
Thank you,
time to have a conversation. Thank you, Joe, for leading the conversation. Super insightful session. So just a reminder for everybody on the webinar that the two next episodes are coming up next week and the one after, so February 1st and 8th. And if you didn't have time to stay for the full duration of the webinar or you want to share with a colleague, we will be sending you an on-demand version that you can watch. We will be sending you that via email, and you will also receive the full customer story of Spector Co, which is also available on our website that I linked in the chat earlier. So thank you to both of you, super insightful, and on to the next webinar next week.
Very good. Juan, it's great chatting with you. Take care. Stay warm.
Thank you, Joe. Really enjoy it. I appreciate the invite.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Bye bye.
you.